the price point is different,
Okay.
for sure. Like it is higher, even if it's just comparing conversion rate. Like we do have a higher markup, and I'm sure that's,
Yeah.
and shipping things into Canada is way more expensive.
Hey, welcome back to the Gecko Cove Connection, the Gargoyle Gecko podcast. My name's Bobby, and today I get to interview Jasmine from Blackthorn Exotics. Blackthorn Exotics is located up in Canada. She's our very first guest from overseas. Well, technically not overseas, she's just straight up north, but in a different country. So I get to have a lot of fun talking with her about what's different in Canada. Are all geckos related to northern gecko up there? What is it like to import and export? What are some of the challenges? What are some of the benefits of being in Canada as a gecko breeder? So if that sounds interesting to you, then you're in the right place. Welcome to Gecko Cove. Well, welcome back to the Gecko Cove Connection. Today I have Jasmine from Blackthorn Exotics. Welcome, Jasmine.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So I'm really excited to have you on today. You're my first Canadian guest, and I would love to learn about sort of the Canadian market and a lot about you and your practices. Are things different up north?
You wouldn't think so because we're just northern neighbors, but things are so different in the way of costs and accessibility and things like humidity and temperature control. So there is quite a few things that people don't realize are different up here.
Awesome. Well, I can't wait to dive into that. But before we do that, I just want to learn a little bit about you and where Blackthorn Exotics came from. So can you kind of give us your intro story? When did you start getting into animals and how did you create this business?
Yeah, I mean, it's that typical doing it my whole life thing, catching frogs and all the things that drive the parents nuts. And animals have been a lifelong thing that way for sure.
Hmm.
And now it's kind of turned into something obviously a little more serious than that. I started keeping properly amphibians and breeding amphibians when I was a teenager. Kind of got a snake and a bearded dragon and did all those things from pet store rescues most of the time. And when I started breeding, it was in 2007 properly, and I
Okay.
started
That was a
breeding
while ago.
chameleons. Yeah, yeah, it was quite a while ago. Yeah, I started breeding chameleons first, and then got a couple crested geckos, and was like, no, I need something a little more substantial than this,
I
and
mean, they're basically the same creature, right?
you know. Yeah, so it's producing, panther chameleons, veiled chameleons, and then gargoyle geckos was the first actual gecko that I bred.
Oh, I love
Yeah,
that.
all in 2007. So it's been a bit with gargoyle geckos.
Oh, wow. Okay. So yeah, even back then you were breeding gargoyle geckos.
Yes, yeah, I actually got a really cool customer update the other day from a gargoyle gecko that I produced in 2007. That's just still alive and kicking. So
Oh, that's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah, so it's been, it feels like a long time ago, but then when you see that your animals are still indeed alive, it doesn't feel like that long ago. So,
No, they definitely live a little bit longer than your average pet, but it's cool to
yes,
see that it's being well taken care of and that they reach back out. I get
definitely.
excited when I send a picture of a 3-year update, let alone, I mean, I won't do the math on how many years ago that was,
I
but
think it's a 16 or 17-year update. Yeah.
yeah, yep,
Yeah,
that gecko's in high school.
for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Very cool. So yeah, after kind of working with chameleons and a few gargoyle geckos back then, how did it evolve into the business that it is today?
Yeah, I did that. First time breeder, jump in deep into everything, right in the beginning and kind of kept a little bit of everything after I got my footing a little bit, especially once I started vending shows and then you see everybody's stuff and you're like, ooh, I need that, or ooh, that's really cool, or I didn't realize I'd like them so much. And, so I did that for a good number of years and then took a step back when I had my youngest kids. Got
Awesome.
rid of most of my collection just because it was much different time in life. I
Hmm.
started breeding when I was pretty young. So those big life changes that come in really kind of derail things sometimes.
Yeah, kids are harder
So
than geckos.
sometimes, yeah.
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah. And then I started Blackthorn up. My original business was Canopy Chameleons, right? And that
Okay.
was kind of what my focus was on chameleons and Madagascar species in general. And then when I came back into it, I wanted something a little more broad. that wasn't just
Sure.
one species name type thing. And so blackthorn was pretty natural because I work with, like, I'm a herbalist as well, so I work with plants and trees and all those things, and it was kind of just my favorite tree, and a tree that's like well known from, more that UK heritage, and smashed it all together, and we had Blackthorn Exotics.
Oh, that's
And
awesome.
yeah, and really started doing it more seriously, yeah, 2019, right before things got crazy. So it was
Great
a
timing.
jarring time to come back, though. It's like, what is happening? This is different.
Right. Were the prices as crazy in 2019? I mean, I know it really picked up in 2020, but when you first
um,
started purchasing them, or did you notice like, man, I got in at the right time?
it was a bit of both, a bit of both, because the things that were popular, the things that I loved the most,
Hmm.
were like really popular. I've got a bunch of like IMG boas and stuff like that, and those price tags were really, really high, even that 4 years ago.
Sure.
Crested geckos were definitely, I would consider them to have been pretty normal when I got
Sure.
back in. Gargoyle geckos are pretty normal. Like the average price. I mean, prices aren't going to mean much because it's in Canadian, but I'd
That's okay.
say,
We have calculators for that.
right? Well, in US, it was probably about, 250 US was like a baseline for just a normal black and white stripe or a retic or something like that. So it was
Yeah.
pretty normal. It's kind of
Yeah, I'd say that even
the
today,
same as
that's about
now.
it. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, I think the gargoyles have stayed somewhat more stable than the crested gecko market. We don't have to
Yep.
dive too much into that, but
Yeah.
that's one nice thing about this species. So, you
Definitely.
jumped in 2019, and then what did 2020, 2021 look like for you? Was it a whirlwind?
It really was. Even just timing of life again. It was like, okay, I'm getting back into this. I'm like, taking it super seriously. And life is like, are you sure about that? And so it was kind of a little bit of a more difficult start because COVID really kind of took everybody by surprise as far as what the day to day life was going to look like.
Absolutely.
It wasn't too different for us up here, right? Things were shut down and just crazy. So um, it was really difficult to, because we had to homeschool, right? All of our kids got pulled out of
Hmm.
school, so we were homeschooling and working still because I work from home, so there was no time off for my job. So
Yep.
and I got divorced that year as well. So it was
Sorry about that.
like, oh no,
Good.
congratulations is the way
Yeah, there you go.
to, um,
Fair enough.
right. So I wasn't totally sure what my future looked like with
Yeah.
reptiles again. I'm like, did I jump in too quickly because I didn't foresee 2020 being just apocalyptic as far as personal lives went?
Hmm.
Um, but even though I was like, hey, that's it, I'm selling everything. Like, I can't do this. I'm not doing this at all. I'm really
Yep.
glad I didn't make that decision.
I am too, because you've
you
got
know,
some gorgeous animals.
Thank you. Yeah, it's so nice. And now
Yeah.
I have a partner here that just loves them as much as I do. So it's that,
Excellent.
extra hands on it and somebody to talk to about it that really keeps you kind of like in the passion for it still. Because it's Canada can be a little isolating for other breeders, right? Like
Sure.
there's, especially, I'm not in one of the big cities, right? So it is nice to kind of have somebody remind you of why they're so awesome all
You're
the time,
right.
especially
Well,
when they're new to it, right? So
and I'll be honest with you, that's sort of why I'm doing this is that, I'm a little bit jealous. I love my wife. She's amazing. I don't deserve her.
right.
However, she likes cute and fluffy. Anybody who's listened to this has heard that. Scaly, she'd be happy if I sold them all off and we went on a Disney vacation tomorrow.
Right.
So, I see some couples every so often at the shows, and I think it's a lot of people's dream. So you got the dream one way or another. You found it.
Yeah. No, it's true, because I've definitely been on the other side of that,
Yeah.
where the support was, I think it's a misunderstood hobby unless you really love them.
Hmm.
They don't understand why we love it.
Right.
So it is pretty cool when you're able to kind of share that with somebody and not have to explain. Like, yes, that's right. I did spend X amount of thousands of dollars on this one
Correct. And
gecko.
I think it's cute, and they're like,
Right.
cute. You got cute out of that one,
Right.
or, here, I don't know if you get this up in Canada, but up in the US a lot. If anybody has family in Florida, it's, oh, I see those crawling around all the time. I'll just pick one
Right.
up and send one to you. It's like,
Yeah. No, we don't get
not
that
the
here.
same thing. Those are anoles, but
Yeah.
I don't want to sound like a know-it-all.
Right. Yeah.
Not that
Fair.
they don't have geckos in Florida. I understand they do.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, no, it's just funny how people don't appreciate it. And so if you have someone to share it with, it's amazing.
It really is, and especially even just when something hatches, it's
Hmm.
like come look, like that. It's
Yep.
more exciting when you have somebody to share it with. So it definitely is. And I will say though, I've seen a lot of couples where the other partner came around.
Hmm.
After X amount of years, they do come around, especially when they see how happy it makes you, right? So
Hopefully that's the reason. Or in my case, I'm hoping when the money starts coming in from selling the babies, my wife will start coming around. But that's
either
just me.
or.
Either or. Where I see with my family, the people getting really excited are my kids, and
Yes.
everything's new to them, but this is really new to them, and especially with my sons, they love dinosaurs, and hatching out of the egg.
Yeah.
They've got to sit on my lap and watch the geckos hatch, and I think it leaves an impression on you. And
Yeah.
so hopefully, man, I don't know if you share this experience with your kids at all, but it's amazing.
Yeah, it is when you especially when you have more than one kid, not all of them are going to love it. That's just
No.
the statistics of it, but I definitely have one that's he loves it. He comes
Yeah.
down and he'll be happy to just watch me spray baby bins, so
Yep. Hey, I'll take one. It'll be fine. So if I
absolutely.
can get both of them addicted, that'd be great. But I have low expectations.
I mean, as
So
long as they're willing to help wash bins, it's wonderful.
yes, yes, free labor. That's why we
Yes,
used to have kids, not anymore. But
right.
farm life. So okay, you said something earlier. I want to circle back to about just the overall market in Canada and the culture being a little bit different, potentially to the U.S. And you know, I don't know how often you've come down to the US at all or really seen some of our
Never.
market,
Yeah.
but we talk a lot. You've probably seen a bunch of YouTube, personalities talk about how it is here. So that
Yeah.
probably helps. What would you say is the overall gecko market like in Canada, specifically the gargoyles? Like, are people into certain things more than others? Are there some challenges that we probably don't face here in the States?
Yeah, I mean, we don't seem to have a lot of gargoyle breeders. Like we do have a lot of small gargoyle breeders,
Hmm.
people that breed a bunch of different type of geckos, um, but not large scale or really super serious. There's like a dozen kind of kicking around. And
Is
so
everything related to northern gecko? Is that true?
it seems like it. It seems like it. It really
Yeah.
does. Which is great on one hand because the lineage is always incredible and
It's
the quality
phenomenal.
is
Yeah.
always incredible. But then when you're trying to breed things that aren't northern gecko, it does become complicated because it's like, okay, but did you get their parents from northern gecko? What about their grandparents? Yeah, okay, that's there it is.
Right.
So it is because, they have been such a huge part of the gecko community long term, like really long term in Canada,
Yeah.
an absolute cornerstone, right? That's the name that everybody associates with
With
Canadian
Canada.
gecko
Yeah.
breeders, right? So,
I think that one of their gargoyles is the gargoyle on the Repashy formula.
I have no idea, but I wouldn't be
Yeah.
surprised.
So I
Like,
think I saw some old YouTube video back in the day where that was the case. So
okay,
could be
yeah,
wrong. If I'm
yeah.
wrong, put it in the comments.
I'm gonna have to Google it now. So,
Yeah. There you go.
yeah. Yeah, no, it can be tricky that way because a lot of us do when we're like, okay, we want really good quality animals, and the importing budget may not be there. There's great breeders to pick from, but as far as selection goes, they
Yep.
usually have the most of it, and so it is kind of tricky and then we do end up importing a lot because of that, and I find that I don't know if it's just because it's gargoyles, but I find that there's not a lot of like when I scroll my feed on Instagram, for example, it's just like crested, 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 bearded dragon, fat tail gecko, and then maybe a couple down I'll see, you know, a gargoyle gecko and a chewy. But for the most part, I find because I try to follow a lot of Canadian breeders, right?
Hmm.
Especially when it comes time to go shopping, and they're easier to
They're going to
access.
be cheaper. Yeah.
Right. Well, and this is it, right? And you can get the same quality often, but we just don't have the selection. Like there's just way less breeders. There's 10 times, again, there's the population is 10 times in the States of what we have
Mm-hmm.
here. So that naturally means way less breeders, way less selection, way fewer bloodlines. Um, and there's not as much of an importance for providing different shipping alternatives or selling alternatives or anything. So there's just not enough of us to really make it worth it.
Okay.
So there's, all these micro challenges that are just a little bit more difficult, even, shipping cost. Um,
Yep.
in Canadian, it's like $100 to ship within the States. Like if I have a seller ship within the States, it's about
Okay.
$100 Canadian. And here it's like 150. So even something like that, those
It
just
adds
little
up.
things.
Yeah.
It really does, and then obviously having to import really is not cost effective. But I feel it's really important to be able to have
How
diverse
much would it
lines.
cost you to, let's say you're looking at a nice gecko? How much would it cost you to import, two or three? I'm assuming you're doing more than just one animal at a time when you choose to do that as well. Ideally.
Sometimes because they have a price for 1 to 2 animals, and then they have
Okay.
a price for 3+ animals. So you really have to kind of weigh it out because we also get charged shipping or taxes as well when it comes
Oh,
across.
okay.
So it's going to be way more expensive to import a $3,000 animal versus a $300 animal, even with all the base import fees, right? So
Okay.
it adds up really, really quickly, especially because we're importing one animal uh, mid-October. Just
Okay.
one. Which sounds crazy, like it would be expensive, but it actually doesn't add enough onto the cost for it not to be worth it. And then we did an import a couple weeks ago with, I think altogether we had 7 animals in there, 6 animals in there,
Yep.
and it was only so expensive because of the GST, like the taxes that we had to pay on the shipment on the value. So
Okay.
this time, I think converting it to US, it would probably be like $375 to
Oh,
import an
wow.
animal.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's 1 to 2 animals plus tax, right? Plus that
Okay.
5% on top of the value. So you can do 2 animals for that, 350,
5%, no matter what the value is.
5%. Yep.
Wow. Okay.
Yep.
I know you would never fudge those numbers. You would always be honest. Do you see other people, right, ever just, when they're claiming how much they spent on the package,
I don't
fudge
think
those numbers?
so because we all import through Reptile People, right? Like we have Reptile
Okay, so
Express
they know.
International. So they would know. It's like, are you trying to tell me that this Chewy's only worth $75? Like that's not happening,
Yeah. The
So
market's flooded. Chewies are cheap. No, they're
there's giving them away.
not.
Um, so I'm sure there's people that claim a little less than it is because it does add up so fast. But for the most part, everybody's
Sure.
pretty honest about it. And I mean, we also don't want to wreck anything for anybody, right?
Hmm.
Like that
Yeah.
that whole one bad apple thing. It's facts. So and we really struggle, just like you guys do with laws and stuff like that. We don't want to draw any bad
Any bad
attention.
attention to it.
Yeah.
Well, and you already said it's such a small community.
Yeah.
You get that bad reputation and you're done. Let's be
Exactly.
honest.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Even if it was a huge one, I find the reptile community itself is a very small world
Mm-hmm.
and you can't escape anything. So,
Nope.
no point in trying. You got to play everything above board.
Yep. No, that's great advice. So would you say it's probably easier for me if I wanted to ship an animal from, Canada, rather than, you importing an animal? Which way is it easier in your opinion?
I definitely think that if people are exporting from the US, it's easier.
Mm-hmm.
They get flat rates. We don't,
Mm-hmm.
right? So there's a flat rate fee, and that includes shipping to the hub, to the house as well. Like so, two shippings. That includes all the inspection, the paperwork. It's a flat fee, and we
Yep.
do not have a flat fee. Like things just keep stacking up just because of the way our system works. So it's as far as ease goes, it's the
Okay.
same amount of paperwork, which, they usually handle for us. Like Reptile Express does all of our paperwork and everything.
Sure.
It's just the cost is where it gets a little different. So it's definitely cheaper to export from uh,
To the U.S.
to the US, or yeah, if you're buying in the
Yep.
US, bringing in is way cheaper.
I've got two of my best breeders this year that were shipped to me by Bell City Exotics in Canada,
Okay,
and yeah, hopefully I'm saying the name right. But he was awesome, and actually he baked it all into the price for me, so I didn't even realize how much shipping was.
nice. Yeah,
Which so I don't know if that's a strategy a lot of people employ in Canada.
definitely try
Claim
to
free
like group it
shipping.
up. Yeah, and it's hard because our shipping is more expensive. So when we're like, oh, we'll include the cost of shipping, it's like, oh no, why did I do that? Um,
Right.
but if we're sending down to the US, because of all the flat rates, you can send a bunch, right? Like
Yeah.
you can send way more without getting taxed like crazy and having the tiers jump up so fast. So it's yeah, it's definitely the way to do it. I know a lot of people kind of group buy because
Yeah.
there's, especially here too, we have a per buyer fee and a per seller fee as well. So if
Oh,
three
okay.
of us want to go in on one import from three different sellers, that's six separate additional fees as well,
Wow. So they
right?
catch you every which way.
Yeah. Yeah. It really adds up fast.
Okay.
Yeah, it can be if you're not mindful too, right? And like
Yeah.
remembering how many things are gonna it's like all of a sudden your import these fees are like $1,000 and you're like, ah.
Okay.
So
So, okay, that leads me to two questions then. So it sounds like because it's somewhat of a challenge just to get the animals, you're still doing it, and we love these animals and they're worth it.
yeah,
So do you just have what, 10 geckos?
you'd think so.
Right.
Um, you would think so. No, it's definitely we're more mindful for sure
Hmm.
when we're shopping for animals, especially now because I have been breeding for so long. Um, a lot of that like novelty of ooh I love this and I'm going to buy this hasn't necessarily worn off because I still get excited, but you're more mindful as far as is it going to fit into the plans, like is this something that's truly worth it, because I know I'd love them all no matter how many
Sure.
there are, but I am pretty mindful of amounts, because even things like getting feeders are really tough, especially in this part of Canada. So
Okay.
you got to be pretty mindful. It's like, well, if I can't get feeders this week, am I going to be able to feed X amount of mouths? Thankfully, we don't have too many things that don't eat MRP as well. But
Excellent.
there are a lot of considerations for how many animals to have because of just those extra costs and those extra consideration and just the way that we cage them, like we house them. So
And there's nothing wrong with being extra mindful on this. I think,
right.
it's very easy to get addicted to buying geckos. I
Oh
am
yeah.
an example of that
Yeah.
myself. And probably because my wife is the person who doesn't like these animals, she keeps me reined in like your government keeps you reined in.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah,
so,
it's
um,
true.
so one thing I was wondering, so you're talking about, the challenges with import, and so you're trying to maybe buy locally. What are the reptile shows like in Canada? Because I heard that I was listening to Wiccan's Weapon. Oh, I'm gonna
Wiccan's
butcher his
wicked.
name.
Yeah.
Reptiles. Thank you.
Yeah.
WWW.
Yeah.
WWR. I love his channel, by the way. Big shout out.
Yeah.
Not that he needs it, but um, he was talking about how there's only one organization who does reptile shows. Is that correct?
Um, kind of, not really. That's kind
Okay.
kind
Yeah.
of. So there's reptile shows across Canada, obviously, but because of our sparse population, in a lot of the provinces, like especially when we look at like Saskatchewan, Manitoba, there's a lot less happening there for shows.
Okay.
Places like Ontario, like where we have Toronto, um, huge shows, big shows, right?
Makes
And they
sense.
are run by mostly one organization, besides the kind of the fray outlier shows. Um, Definitely not here, like in Western Canada. We have a weird amount of shows in Alberta, like a
Okay.
very strange amount of shows here. We have, I think, 6 or 7 shows a year, kind of within. We have like a little strip of bigger cities, and which is quite a few considering like there's not a whole ton of us.
Mm-hmm.
And then in BC, they have a couple, but for the most part, Western Canada, all of Western Canada is much quieter for shows, smaller shows, even the ones that are, the biggest show in Western Canada, it's still,
relatively
it's
smaller compared.
yeah, it really is, especially when you
Yeah.
look. I see the footage. Yeah, I've never been to the Toronto shows, but I see the footage, or I see the footage of the state shows, the bigger state shows. I'm like, wow, like that's crazy. Like
Yeah, well,
it's
next
wild.
weekend is Tinley in
Right.
Chicago, and I live right there. So
That's dangerous.
I, it's dangerous, but it was kind of cool because I had no idea. I was completely ignorant to what Tinley was for years.
Right.
I'd be like, oh yeah, it's kind of by my in-laws, and I'll
Yeah.
stop by and look around, and I'll leave. And I knew it was crowded. But then I realized people were like naming their animals after Tinley, and I'm like,
Right.
this is interesting. Okay.
Right.
I was like, cool. All right. This is awesome. And so I'm be going there next week and doing a whole gecko. Um, so the day this drops, I'm going to be at Tinley doing a
Nice.
walkthrough of just the geckos. So
Oh,
I'm going to ignore
cool.
all the other animals. It's just a gecko walkthrough. I
Nice.
did it for Schaumburg. I'll post the Schaumburg walkthrough right here just to see what that looks like.
Yeah.
And yeah, so hopefully you'll be able to watch that too, along
Yeah.
with this episode.
Yeah. That'd be awesome. Can live vicariously for sure.
Yeah. I was so sick and tired of seeing walkthroughs and just like skipping through. Okay, gecko. No, I don't care about all this
Yeah.
stuff. All the ball
Yeah.
pythons. Not that I don't love ball pythons; they're
Yep.
fantastic, but not my jam right now.
Definitely. And
So
I always wonder too, because I look at people's stories, when they're posting, oh, we're set up at the expo, blah, blah, come see us. I'm like trying to zoom
yep.
in and look at their tables, like, show me what you have.
Right. I mean, even just to see what the pricing is like,
Yeah.
if you look at my old video, a lot of the breeders let me just kind of scan over and you can see the stickers clearly on
Nice.
the tubs and everything. And I think it gives people an idea of should I go to these shows? Should I
Yeah.
invest my time? Is it cheaper to go on the morph market? Um, so going back to your shows though, how like do you vend your shows? Do you just attend your shows? And if you do vend, what are your sales like? Do you do a lot of sales at the shows or mostly online?
You know, it really depends on the year right now. Everything's been so up and down.
Hmm.
So this year, I haven't vended any shows, which is
Okay.
super weird. So I've attended a few just to go see things, and um, it's always so strange being on the other side of the table. But last year I'd say sales wise was is it's slow. Like the market's slow, and we really see it. We really see it here.
Okay.
And, so online sales are obviously still a thing. They almost need to be a thing. I find most of the shows here, especially last year, were they're more for like families to go check out and not
Yes.
really like breeders going to look and people wanting new pets. It was more so like, ooh, let's see what they have at the reptile show. So, that poses it both like kind of pros and cons though. It can be difficult to financially make sense of attending too many shows if you know that they're going to be quieter, but it also does give you the opportunity to talk to those families and those kids and kind of plant that seed of how neat they are. Especially, I find, I'm sure this is the same everywhere. There's a lot of parents with that stigma of snakes and all
Mm-hmm.
these things, and kind of rushing their kids through it quickly because oh no. And so it's nice to be able to talk to kids and let them see things up close and that it's not so scary. And it's because it's going to
Yeah.
be a nonstop thing, right? Like kids of the next generation are going to be us in 20, 30 years. And so it's nice going to talk to everybody, but you can never rely on any show at any time for sales. If you get
Mm-hmm.
them, great. If you get lots, even better. But there are definitely shows where they're slow. So you work on, making connections with the other breeders and talking to families, and you
Yep.
really have to find a lot of, especially newer breeders, get discouraged when there's a slower show. And like, well, I invested so much money and I did this and this and I don't understand. And it's like, well, I'm pretty sure that's just how sales of any industry work, like there's good times and there's
Right.
bad times. So,
Well, and I think it's the same in Canada as it is in the US right now. The market in general, I don't care if it's geckos, it's slow,
yeah,
it's more expensive.
yep,
Inflation has just destroyed a lot of economies,
yep,
and I won't dive into that.
right.
But I mean, just my groceries are 4 times more expensive,
Exactly.
So
Yep,
if I'm spending 4 times more on groceries, it's harder to pull the trigger on a $400 gecko. Not even a
yeah,
$2,000 gecko,
yep,
but a $400 gecko. It's like, do I really need this, right?
absolutely.
Um, and so those geckos that are a little bit cheaper, let's
Hmm.
say, that might be great for the initial, gecko owner or the kid looking to
Yeah.
get their first reptile. I think that's the expectation I have, is that I'm going to bring, if I produce those are the ones I'm going to go to my local show. I'm not going to bring those to
Yeah.
Tinley, right? Because
Right.
hopefully Tinley and the NARBC shows, those are the ones that the other breeders are going to hunt. Um,
Definitely.
and so we have a great show by me called the Scott Smith All Animal Expo.
Okay.
And so we have some amazing breeders who go there all the time, but they know to bring middle to lower end animals,
Right.
but they're also fantastic. One thing I'll give a shout out to my buddy Ariel. He's got a lychee he brings out all the time, super handleable. And I mean, you want to talk about getting people into geckos. There's nothing like, you can see a table of them. They're cool, beautiful,
Yep.
but to appreciate a gecko is to hold a gecko.
Yeah.
Feel how soft they are, feel how cool it is to have their pads and their nails, and realize it
Yep.
doesn't hurt.
Yep.
Um, I had this conversation with David from the Gargoyle Den in my last podcast. But it's just that experience, like you said, of getting over the fear, changing that
Yep.
next generation's outlook. And I was part of that. My family never kept reptiles at
Right.
all. Snakes were almost as eh, you'd bring a shotgun out if you saw a snake.
Yeah.
And so now I appreciate reptiles. They're not just dumb creatures. They're not as smart as dogs, but they have their place
Right.
in our hearts. And
Yeah.
so if you start with young kids, I think that's just such a great way. And those shows have a purpose. And so even if you don't make money, like you said, it can pay off, maybe not that day, but down the road when that little kid comes back and all of a sudden he becomes a breeder and he
Yeah.
buys that, $5,000 gecko from you because you were the first one to sell him your
Right.
gecko.
Yeah. No, it's
So
true. And, I had a mentor when I came into this, and I was young, like I was real young. Well, I don't know. I was
you're
probably
still
like,
young.
well, I was like 20 when I got into this. Don't do the math. But, I did have a mentor that I met, through attending shows, and, um, I wouldn't have had that opportunity. Like if he just didn't have the time for stuff like that, I wouldn't have the opportunity
Yeah.
to learn. And, say what you want about old school people, they have a lot to kind of evolve with. But it was really nice getting in and being mentored by somebody that was so eager to teach the younger
Yes.
generation, teach us how to DIY everything, and, really just kind of put all of our attention into it. And so grateful for that, because it's hard to find people that are excited to teach,
Hmm.
and excited to take the understanding that it is going to affect somebody long term, like in a positive way, or
Right.
if you're mean to them about it, a negative way. Um,
Sure.
but
Hopefully not too much of that,
right.
but
But and doing this for that long, I have seen some of those younger kids grow up, um and do this, some of them really full time too. So it is cool to see that progression, and they do grow up and become breeders sometimes. And
yeah,
and it's cool when you have somebody so many years later being like, oh, I brought my first crested gecko off of you like 15 years ago. I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool.
it's so cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. It's just something that, it kind of touches you, when somebody comes back from that long ago, or if you
Yeah,
see a gecko you sold from that long ago, I think it just makes it worth it even more. It's like having a little kid,
it's
I'm
true.
hatching out my first geckos, and I'll be honest with you, I'm a little bit too attached, and I'm like, I almost want to give a survey to anybody like asking for prices,
Right?
right?
Yep.
Okay, do you
Yeah.
have because dog breeders do this, right?
Yes.
When my grandmother breeds, she breeds golden retrievers, and with puppies, you have to fill out a form
Yeah.
saying, when's your last vet visit with your animal? How many animals have you had?
Yeah.
What does your yard look like? Okay, so with geckos, will we ever get to the point where we have a survey? Do you have an enclosure? Do you use UVB?
Right.
Do you,
Yeah. And it should be the standard, because that's the same if you go into a pet store, to adopt
right?
something, even something so small, they will give you a little bit of a check-in to make sure that you're competent and capable. Um,
Yes.
and I
Hopefully.
right. I don't find that happens a lot in this world, like in the reptile world. And I like to know everything. I like to know how this baby's parents are being kept too, right? Like
Hmm.
I want to know everything. Um, So I just assume that my customers too are okay with like talking about everything. Like, let's talk about how
Yeah.
to set them up and husbandry and everything. But it, not always receptive, and that's okay as long as they give me a
Yeah.
pretty good idea that they're capable. So,
Yeah. And sometimes they come back with those questions too,
yes. Yep.
whether it be, you direct them to some YouTube videos or some books or, just here's my contact information.
Yep.
If you ever have any questions, it may be, a week from now, maybe 2 years from now,
Yep.
contact me. And I think that's a sign of a really great breeder.
It's super important. You definitely can find breeders that house you say don't quite have the time for you, right?
Yep.
So it is so important because people get really excited when they buy things, so they don't ask all the questions right away. I know I
Yeah.
don't. I just get super stoked. I'm like, okay, great, bye. And then you get home with this thing, you're like, oh my God, I had so many questions I didn't ask. So being accessible that way is so important.
Yep.
Um, for both your customer and the animal, like the care of the animal, because sometimes it's important that you do respond to that email asking a very
Yes.
important husbandry question. So,
Yeah. So okay, I'm gonna put you on the spot here.
sure.
I'm a new gecko potential owner, right?
Yeah.
I want to buy my first gargoyle gecko
Yeah.
from you. What are some good questions people can ask? Say they're going to a show this weekend or they're going to Tinley next weekend. What should we be asking breeders? What would you want someone to ask you?
Yeah. I definitely like when people ask me anything about the basic husbandry. What do I feed it? Like, what can I keep this in? Because those basic questions lead into so many more, right? Like,
Yes,
anything around
absolutely.
even the parameter of, is my house good for this, right? Like, can I keep it at room temperature? Well, what's room temperature? And I do like also when people ask to see lineage or ask about parents as well, just because
Hmm.
it gives a good indication of, they want to know, yeah, more so how I keep their parents, and like if they're taken care of and what they look like, and anything along the lines of that enthusiasm for, how do I keep this animal,
Yeah,
because if there aren't enough questions asked, I find people can just kind of take the first information they have and call it a day. It might not be the right information. So those really super basic ones, like, what do I feed it? Well, if you're not comfortable feeding it bugs,
yep.
maybe we should talk about that, because there will be so many times where people don't realize exactly
That
what the
they
care
should be eating
entails.
bugs.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, especially younger. A lot of teenagers, right, will ask their
Hmm.
parents for permission to give this animal to this gecko, and they're convincing them 10 different ways that it'll be okay. And I know there's a lot of people that sell strictly on the premise of they don't need to eat bugs. Like, they'll sell cresteds
Hmm.
and gargoyles of, no, no, you never have to feed it bugs because MRP just does everything. And that's a different discussion, obviously. But if you, let's say, end up with a picky gecko that really liked bugs,
Hmm.
you're going to run into all sorts of problems, and even transitioning him into a different food might be tricky. And, so just having those open conversations with the breeders, all breeders,
Yep.
and obviously
And
how
if a
they answer.
breeder's not, oh, go ahead.
Oh, I
Sorry.
was to say, how they answer it is obviously important, but like how they
Yeah.
interact with you, like how they treat you about it,
Yes.
that means
Okay.
everything. So it's the answers are important, but like as a new keeper, as somebody asking the breeders questions at the shows, that breeder's enthusiasm to talk to you, like that want to share with you and help you, that makes a big difference in who you should be, trusting.
Purchasing that animal from.
Yeah.
And you stole my thought right out of my head.
Hive
Okay, so
mind.
I love that. Thank you. Sorry I interrupted.
No,
But
no.
no, I just want to reiterate that. I think that, the amazing breeders that I've talked to on this show, it would have no issue whatsoever if I bought a gecko from you saying, "Hey, can I see parent pictures?
Right.
Can I see a fired up, fired down
Yeah.
photo?" You know, if they're annoyed with that, if they I guess I can find it for you, but not right now. Circle back.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sorry. The people I've worked with, and myself included, if you ask me about the parents, I'm going to absolutely geek out. Yeah, I've been raising this
Yeah.
baby for so many years.
Yeah.
I want to show you. Yeah, this is her in her diaper. And
Right.
it's like,
Walk through the baby book with me.
right.
Yeah.
And those are things that I think are really important because, like if I can show the baby pictures, now I can't with all my geckos, some of them I bought a little bit older, but if I can get a hold of that, even from the breeders I bought it from, I
Hmm.
want to have that, because then you can kind of look at my babies and say, ooh, that looks just like mom when she was a
Yeah.
baby. Or, this looks like just like dad. I just posted on Instagram yesterday a little like challenge. So my red girl Eve, I posted her picture next to three babies.
Ooh, I saw
Okay.
that. I was going to guess the
Did you
third
see that?
one.
The ABC?
Was it C?
Okay. You tell me. What do you think?
I
Was it
think it
A,
was
B, or
C.
C?
I think it was
All right.
C.
You think it was C. You're
Yeah.
wrong.
Really?
And here's why. Yes. So C, I think, is going to be better than her.
Okay.
So it's her and her two kids. I got two eggs from her.
So it's a trick question.
It's well, a little bit, a little bit. I mean, genetically, they're all very similar,
Yeah.
right? It's half mom. But what I wanted to prove with that, I'm going to post, a little follow up saying that it's A. A was mom. A lot of people actually said B. B was the number one answer by a landslide.
Really?
And then
Okay.
C was number two.
Yeah.
Most people didn't think it was A.
Yeah.
And I want people to realize that I'm trying to improve this line. And
Yeah.
so if mom looks like this and you like the kids better,
Yeah.
do you understand why I'm asking this price?
Right. Well, and that's such a tricky thing with babies, right? Like that price point because they're like, "Oh, why so much?" And it's like, well,
Right.
and then you do have to almost bring up the baby books to
Mm-hmm.
explain, like I do that for myself all the time with my own animals as I look back in the like when they hatched to now to see how fast the progression is and where the progression is and get a good
Yep.
idea of like where the animal's going to be because sometimes they don't progress nearly as much as you think that they would.
No.
Like you're like, what happened? You stopped coloring up at like 3 months old. But then sometimes they surpass it to such a point where it's like, how is this the same animal? Like, I don't understand what happened here and what they've been eating that's different
Yep.
than everybody else. So it's really cool to share that with customers too when they're buying younger animals and get them super
Yep.
excited about, that growth and color development and yeah.
Yeah, I think people are interested in it. I think, and as breeders, going back to that, we should be interested in enough to share this with the next generation
Right.
or just fellow breeders,
Yeah.
right? Just because we're familiar with the geckos and we have our own geckos, I still want to know about the lineage. I still want
Yeah.
to know about all these amazing things about how you're keeping your gecko, and so I think it's important. So
Definitely.
what I'd like to talk to you, speaking of how you keep your geckos,
Hmm.
okay, I see some beautiful enclosures behind you, some PVC, some glass.
Yeah.
Um, let's talk about how you keep your geckos. Are there any specific challenges being where you're at that you have to consider? And how have you adapted due to that?
Yeah, I think it would be really similar to the northern US, right? As far as temperature struggles and humidity struggles, especially.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as that furnace kicks on for the year, your humidity's gone,
Yes.
100%. It's just dry heat at that point. So, it's definitely challenging just because to our temperatures, I don't know how extreme the temperatures can go from day to day for the
Mm-hmm.
northern states, but like here we can get extreme, like 40, 50 plus degree, like from day to day. Our province is kind of known for its whiplash temperature. So it can be really hard to predict, instead of just setting a certain temperature and mist system and everything for winter versus spring and summer. You really have to kind of monitor it all the time. And the seasons have, I don't know if it's just me thinking this, but it seems like the seasons have gotten really extreme lately and really unpredictable. All of a
Yeah.
sudden, it's minus 30, which is like also minus 30 Fahrenheit. Um,
Yep. It's the
and
same after -0, right? Or
yeah,
after zero?
almost. Yeah. As soon as it gets that negative 30 point, you're pretty
Yeah.
much the same. But it'll go all the way up to like the next week, like +5. And so you go, okay, well, everything was really dry this week, and now everything is just so like now I gotta replace my soil. And so, there's those kind of temperature considerations. I find that's pretty, I don't know, a lot of the northern US again breeders do struggle with that as well.
Absolutely.
Um, you know, I find that how we keep them almost matters less on those types of things. It's the cost. It's the cost up here of keeping them in anything other than bins is just It's insane. Like it's crazy,
Mm-hmm.
because nothing is manufactured in Canada, like, ever, right? Like
Okay.
we don't have the option. Even like our PVC cage builders, there's like four, five in Canada, and none of them do gecko things specifically. They do snake things and
Ah,
try and make
okay.
it work for geckos. So you're
Yeah.
always having to do custom PVC, and it's never quite it because they either don't have the experience in the geckos specifically that you're keeping, or they're too used to keeping snakes, and they are
Yeah.
different. Yeah, so things like that can be challenging. But
That could be
over,
a business venture for
oh,
somebody who's an entrepreneur.
you know, I am so done running businesses at this point. But no, there's definitely, like, as far as keeping goes, we keep everybody in like PVC and glass.
Yeah.
Everybody that's like sub-adults and older. We do have our babies in heated racks.
Okay.
um, yeah, our babies, and then our growths, depending on the gecko species. Usually we try and get them out of the bin 15, fruit flies, 15 to 20 grams, is when we try and move them out to the bins by.
Okay.
It's not set in stone.
This your
Some
6 quart tubs?
uh 8, 9, they're
Oh,
bigger.
okay. Nice. Oh, they're bigger.
They're not the little
Not the
shoebox ones.
shoebox.
They're the one size up.
Okay.
Yeah, so maybe overkill for some geckos, but because they're heated, we do like to have them bigger so that there's more of
Yep.
a difference in the heat for
Thermal
them.
gradient. Yep.
Yeah, so as long as they're like well ventilated, and because they're heated, we find that that size does work really well. Our geckos grow really nice, and I wouldn't say fast, but they grow well. Um, we haven't had any issues with humidity in them as well, just because we've kind of nailed down that ventilation, and so
Yeah.
no missing toes and tails or anything like that. So it's been
So I'm
nice.
going to interrupt real quick
Hmm.
just because I want to ask. I don't want to jump too far away from this. You heat the bins. I would say majority of people that I know do not heat their racks
Yeah.
for babies.
Hmm.
And so it makes sense to me. I know that when I keep my geckos, I heat the whole room with a room. I think it's good to have a thermal gradient, but I just use a space heater.
Yep.
Um, and so when I have the space heater higher, especially during the summer, um, I have to miss a lot more because it's drier,
Yep.
but they grow a lot faster. They're hungrier. They eat more
Yes.
bugs. So are you seeing that with your babies? And what temperature do you keep them at with the heat tape? What do you set it to?
So the back of the bin is usually about 80, and the
Okay.
front of the bin will probably be about like 74, somewhere around
You mean they
there.
don't die at 80 degrees?
Weird, right?
Weird. I thought
Yeah.
they die at anything over 72.
And it's so funny because, like, I talk to people about this all the time. Like, oh, well, just room temp is fine. I'm like, it's so weird
Mm-hmm.
because in all my baby bins, every gecko is like towards the back, like always towards the back, especially
Yeah.
Chewies. Chewies like it hard, like hotter than the
Mm-hmm.
gargoyles. So they're like right up against the back wall because it's back heat instead of belly heat, just so the bins
Okay.
don't overheat. Like, if our heat tape malfunctions,
Yes.
the danger to the bins is like way, way, way less than belly heat. So, but everybody's usually stuck on that back wall. And I find I don't have any gargoyles that refuse crickets. I haven't had that issue in years, ever since I started keeping them in heated racks. They're just, I don't know, they got that spunk, like they're just livelier and they like to hunt.
Yeah.
And the bins dry out too, which is nice, right? Like, you can get that
Mm-hmm.
full dry out before we miss them at night. I found when they were too moist, from not having that heat in it, obviously there's like health issues that can come from that, but I found they weren't as excited to go hunting and stuff. They always kind of felt like they were too, when you get wet and damp on a rainy day, and you
Yeah.
just want to lay on the couch with tea.
Well, exactly. Well, and if you think about it, I think that the heat helps them digest. I
Yeah.
mean, it makes sense when you're talking about other gecko species,
Hmm.
right? The belly heat for a leopard gecko.
Yeah.
They have to have that, otherwise they don't digest their food.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that in the leopard gecko world.
Yeah.
I think it's because they're not laying their belly on whatever the heat source is, but they might be. Maybe we just don't associate that.
Right.
And they're more willing to eat the foods that they need the heat to actually
Yeah.
digest. And I think something to look into.
I think so. And I've kept geckos so many different ways over the years, like so many different ways, really just trying to see what works. And I'm not going to say that it's foolproof this way, but I've encountered the least issues, like as far as anything goes. I
Yeah.
don't know, last couple years since it's been heated has been really, yeah, problem free for the babies, which has been great. I've just loved it as far as keeping all the other ways, even keeping babies in small enclosures.
Hmm.
I Heated bins has definitely been the way that we've seen the healthiest and best growing animals from.
And how do you accomplish that when you move them to the PVC or glass tanks?
Yeah, we because the UV and sometimes LED does throw a little bit of heat.
Hmm.
There's a nice
Oh, you use
gradient.
UVB. Cool.
Yes. Yeah.
We
Yes.
don't do that a lot either. So some of us
Right.
do, but not a lot.
Right. Well, I mean that old narrative of they don't need it, so don't give it to them. Not even like
Sure.
maybe give it to them if you'd like to give it to them, but people say just don't, right? So don't even look into it.
Yeah.
That's changing a little bit, which is always nice to see people trying more things. But we keep
Sure.
everybody that's not in a baby bin. Basically, as soon as they move out of the baby bins, everybody gets UV, and that heat does throw enough, just far enough down where I find they bask a lot. They like to come out and
Sure.
bask under it, and we just check too. The mist system can cool things down sometimes, so just temperature check it. And for the most part, though, I find they're really good at self-regulating their heat. So if they want to go get more heat, sometimes first thing in the morning, I will see some like clinging to the screen right under the heat, trying to warm
Yeah.
up before the tank is warmed up for the day. But which also says to me though that they do love that heat and that light, right? They're always seeking
And
it.
I've noticed it. I'm getting excited for either buying just more glass, but I'm more likely going to go PVC.
Mhm.
Um, but I got this enclosure here, which I have two of my geckos in, and I used to do a lot more glass. And I've noticed that yes, when I have a light that's just a LED light, throws a little bit of heat. It probably gets to about 80 degrees Fahrenheit there, um, and my female especially just loves that spot
Yeah.
right up. There's a perch right underneath the light bulb, and I almost feel bad for the ones that I have in the tubs. Not that they're
Yeah.
suffering at all,
Yeah.
but they, I don't give them extra heat. Like I said, I just heat the room.
Yeah.
um, and I've seen such a I see these geckos obviously more. I mean,
Hmm.
they're in the display tank, so that would make sense.
Yeah.
But gargoyles in general, I think, don't hide as much as some of the other species, just like chewies don't hide as much.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some individuals can.
Yeah.
But because we want to see them, if we give them an opportunity to perch out and sunbathe,
Yep.
I think while we're awake, we might see them a little bit more.
Yeah.
So win-win.
Yeah. No, it's true. It's sorry, my mist system is loud. It just kicked in.
I can't even hear it. You're
Oh,
good.
perfect. I do find that as well, especially with females. I always know when they've got eggs cooking because they're under the UV basking way more than they ever would be. And that always
Mm-hmm.
gives me a really good, okay, that female has eggs. Like if you're
Nice.
ever not sure if a pair took or not, it's usually, you can see them under the UV pretty quick and you're like, yes.
Yep. You know your girls. You know their signs.
Right. Yeah. No, they all love it though. Like I don't often see any of them shy away from it. We have one gargoyle that shies away, but she's got, not sure, there's something up with her eye. I thought it was a phantom eye when we bought her, but
Sure.
it almost looks like a torn, like a torn pupil, like a torn retina. So it's very sensitive
Yeah.
to light. Yeah.
So okay, again, I just talked to David at the Gargoyle Den about Phantom Eye. So
Okay.
if you haven't seen that episode, I'll link it right here. Go watch that and then come back right here, right now to this moment. But he was kind of grilling me a little bit about my Phantom Eye male, and asked like, how do I know it's a Phantom Eye?
Yeah.
It's only 3 years old. It's just
Yeah.
starting to develop.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I think the theory right now is that Phantom Eye is a recessive trait, right? Um, and so you need at least two visual parents to, or at least a carrier and two carriers of the gene. Um, but what made it pretty clear for me is both parents had phantom eye, right?
Right.
And so my gecko's starting to develop it. What he was saying is that there's another way to get sort of a fake phantom eye. So if you ever see a gecko with just one phantom and one normal, typically it was an eye injury at some point in their
Right.
life. And
Yeah.
when the eye injury happens, it all darkens, which
Yes.
sounds like that might be the case with your gecko.
Yes. Because the pupil's now a total triangle. right? And the whole eye
Yeah.
did darken because of it. So on first glance, it did look like one eye was just really dark. But then when you look like really close and you can see the pupil where that begins and ends, it's like, oh, okay, that's weird. The other eye's like a little dark as well. I wouldn't have, because some just have darker eyes that aren't quite phantom, right? And so
Sure.
if
Yeah.
I didn't see that darker eye, I probably wouldn't have been like, oh my God, it's a phantom eye. But when I saw that one, I was like, oh, cool, that's so exciting. 'Cause it was like black, like the darkest I've ever seen. Yeah.
Yep.
But and when you see it at the expo too and they're in the container, it's really hard to see the pupil. Like really hard to see the pupil. And it wasn't
Yep.
until we got her home and I actually took her out of the containers when I saw it because and it was a totally different look. But I've seen that with them just one eye was dark. So I do wonder if that's kind of consistently the case. I had a Leachianus that had one
Yeah.
super black eye.
Sue one black.
Yeah.
So yeah, with the lychee. So yeah, if you saw that, you know, lychee with phantom eyes are really cool. They're kind of
Yeah.
nemesis, like
And she
they're
only
really
had
kind of scary looking.
it's true, and she only had one ever, and she developed it
Mm-hmm.
with me. Like she grew into it too. It was an overtime thing, and her one eye, her other eye, just never darkened. It was so bizarre. I don't have her anymore. A friend of Red Deer does, but I meant to check in and see if that other one did too, because she was probably 4 before she started to develop that black eye. So
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah. You never know. I mean, that's the cool thing about this too is, you know, we act like we know everything right now, but I think we've proven over the last few years that we're just scratching the surface with these
yeah,
animals. We really are just starting to dive in and understand their genetics. I think, you know, we just thought, hey, throw random geckos together and we'll see what you know pops up, and that
yep,
was phase one.
yeah,
I'd say we're somewhat in phase two where we're like, okay, we understand basic genetics
yeah.
but not really.
Right.
Right?
And then things like gargoyles always kind of trip us up because it's like, okay, well, we think we know how phantom eye works. You know, let's say it's recessive, but then we'll have animals that try and prove us wrong. Right. And
Yes.
it's like, oh, I haven't really found any traits in gargoyles that are like provable like that. You know, like they're just
Hmm.
not. So we thought that there was none with crested geckos too, though, right? Like
Right.
we for a long time we thought that they just had phenotypes and that was it. And then when the morphs came, it was like an explosion of different morphs. So I don't know if that'll happen with gargoyles. It'd be pretty interesting to see if that did one day, some cool melanistic or leucistic or something really wild looking, but I don't know. It's been a while. We haven't seen
I
anything.
think the more people that get into gargoyles, the better chance we have, right?
It's true.
That happen. Yeah. So, and throw your odd pairs together too,
Yeah.
people, right?
Yeah.
I think that's, we don't have to all just do, you know, red six stripe geckos. I love them. I'm going
Right.
for them, but not everybody needs just that repeated. And even that, I'm kind of looking at really understanding what's the difference, because what one person calls a red six stripe,
Hmm.
right, versus the next person, there are some slight differences,
Yep.
right? Do they have a solid dorsal?
Yeah.
Do they have kind of a blotched dorsal? Do they have, you know, what's their pattern underneath?
Yeah.
You know, some look very reticulated, but still have that striping.
Hmm.
Some have like no pattern whatsoever underneath.
Yeah.
And so I think there's little minutia things that we're not paying attention to right now
Yeah.
that I really want to start paying attention to. Um, and I think there's more layers than we understand. So I think the genes are there. We just needed to discover them in a way. And I don't think it's as obvious as just, you know, uh, a lily white,
It's
right?
true. No, it's so true. And because you do find that people want the brightest or the best instead of the weirdos, really looking for
Yes.
those oddballs in your collection or finding those strange, we go expo shopping to find weirdos, people that would
Hmm.
totally overlook those neat little traits in their geckos that you could make something potentially really cool with. I love the oddballs. They're fun. I
Yeah.
especially see like the mosaic and clown type thing coming up. I think
Yep. I'm excited.
yeah, I think if more people pay attention to their oddballs, like not necessarily breed for oddballs because that's obviously difficult, but really keeping an eye out for those geckos that are just a little bit different, we'll probably have a little bit
Hmm.
of better progress with those projects.
Yep. And hopefully I don't offend anybody here. I'm talking about myself specifically. if you're into reptiles like we are, most likely you're an oddball
It's
yourself.
true.
Okay, so we have to appreciate the oddballs if we are the oddballs.
It's true.
Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think so. I wouldn't consider myself in the
So
realm of normal, so
yeah, no, no. I think when we if we were normal, people wouldn't look at us like, "What do you do?
it's
What's your
true.
hobby?"
Yeah, yeah. Normal people get to talk about their hobbies. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's socially acceptable.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but it's okay. I like being different, and hopefully everybody watching this, embraces that.
I hope so.
Um, so going back to being a little bit different up in Canada, you mentioned earlier that the companies that we have here, we talked about PVC, but with glass, the big companies, the Exoterra, the Zilla. Do you have access to all of that? The Pangea, Repashy, is that all the same?
Yeah, the price point is different,
Okay.
for sure. Like it is higher, even if it's just comparing conversion rate. Like we do have a higher markup, and I'm sure that's
Yeah.
and shipping things into Canada is way more expensive. We only have two seaports, right? So that changes
Yep.
things. Well, two major ones, I should say. We have a bunch, but two major ones as
Two
far as
major hubs. Yeah.
big shipping goes. But we have definitely EXO is our main, like most. Actually, I think all of my glass at this point is EXO, just so that everything is uniform.
Hmm.
Um, but
What's the EXO? I'm sorry,
oh,
I don't know.
EXOTerra,
Know that
sorry.
come. Oh,
Yep.
Exoterra. I'm thinking like EXO, like the stuff in my kitchen,
No,
or
EXOTerra.
XOXO. Yeah. Like, is there a new brand? I don't know.
No, no, no. Yeah,
All right.
so we use EXOTerra for the most part, and
Hmm.
we're pretty loyal to Pangea as far as food goes.
Sure.
We use a few different supplements, but I mean, everything like that's pretty much the same. It's just more expensive because of that accessibility for sure.
And are you able to just pick it up at a local reptile store, or is it mostly shipping in to your house?
Mostly shipping. I don't live in a big city, right? So we do
Hmm.
have one specialty reptile shop in the city closest to me. It's smaller. He's got really incredible projects and stuff. He specializes in monitors and everything, like really cool to go
That's
visit.
awesome.
But it's definitely got less like merchandise, right? Like less viable merchandise, more animals.
Sure.
So if it's in stock, we can get it in a pinch, and that's awesome. But for the most part, we just order, and nobody stocks big enough bags, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we usually have to order for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. That's one thing about the U.S. Bigger is usually always better here.
Right?
So sometimes I'm just looking for, I don't want to spend that much money, but it's usually
Yeah.
cheaper.
Yeah. No, we order most of
So
our stuff from Northern Gecko. Shocker.
interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can buy through them.
Yeah, they're one of the biggest reptile supply wholesalers in Canada as well. Not
Okay.
just like reptile breeders. So they supply most of the stores, reptile stores and such like that with Repashy. And so, it's, yeah, we just cork bark, cork round straight to Northern
Yep.
Gecko. So,
Very cool.
yeah. So, for the most part though, and I think it's location too, like if I was in the Toronto area, I'm sure that would be so much different. But where I am specifically, it's you have to order pretty much everything.
Got it. Yeah, and I'm spoiled here. So I really, if you're somewhere else in the United States and it's more, similar to what we're talking about, please let me know. But, I live near a major city, right? I live near Chicago, and I've got some amazing reptile stores. I probably have about four that I could rattle off right
Oh
now that
wow.
if I wanted to go get anything, they'll have it in stock. And even cork bark, I've never ordered a shipment of cork bark. I either pick it up at I usually get the scrap pieces at Tinley from Pangea.
Yep.
They have the stuff your bag challenge
Right.
for $20. So that's usually for my babies. And then all the other cork you see, I mean, I have tons of cork in here. I just go to my local store, which is Birds and Bees Pet Shop, and they have a great price. And so, again, I'm spoiled. I know Pangea does have a great, at least here in the States, Pangea does a great job with wholesale cork that people have shipped to their house, but never had to do it. Not yet.
Nice.
They're not big enough.
It's a plus.
Yes. Very cool. Um, yeah, no, it's kind of fun learning every area I go to what the market's like, just as far as what specialty stores are around,
Yeah.
what's not there. how isolated are you? And
Right.
so, yeah, it's different for everybody. And I think, the US is a really big place. There's probably a lot of people who relate to you more than relate to me with
Right.
that.
Yeah, no, I suppose
So,
so. And like we do have a bigger store, but it's like 2 hours away, right?
yeah,
That's the closest kind of big city. So, but still, two
that's a
hours is,
haul to go for cork.
well, I mean, you'd be surprised how often we do stuff like that just because of shipping
Okay.
costs, right? Like it's because our shipping
Yeah,
costs are even, especially on dry goods, can be just as expensive as shipping animals sometimes. Our
really.
shipping costs are notoriously awful here. Yeah, and I run e-commerce businesses, like so I ship all the time, like outside
Awesome.
of reptiles, right?
Yeah.
So I've seen it. We're about 2 to 3 times more expensive per package than the US is. So
Okay.
that really adds up. So it's like, well,
It
day
does.
trip. Let's just rip
Yeah.
into the city because
It's a
it's
good thing
expensive.
gas is cheap.
Oh my God. Yeah, right. You really have to weigh that one out these days for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Won't get into that
No.
either. Um, all right. So I want to focus back on your collection specifically.
Sure.
Are there any certain projects you're working on right now that you're just really excited and, that you love kind of talking about, or something that's in the future that you want to share with YouTube here?
Yeah, I mean, I think like everybody, getting those really solid 6 stripes down is always kind of one of the goals, no matter what, regardless of color.
Yeah.
Um, really stoked to be working some orange into that, like to have orange laterals instead of red laterals,
Mm-hmm.
taking that bacon stripe to kind of an extreme. And those bicolors in general, like bicolor blotches, where they retain both orange and red.
Yep.
Those are my favorite, like hands down my favorite for gargoyles. So that's always the hope. It's so hard because you need so many generations of pictures to kind of
Mm-hmm.
put together if that's possible when you're breeding them. But yeah, bicolor in both, like high coverage bicolor is always number
Yeah,
one.
no, it's really cool. I've got some not striped bicolors, but some of my girls that are blotches from Firehouse Geckos are amazing bicolors, and I hope. I mean, they're only about a year and a half old right now. They're massive. They're like
Yeah.
65 grams, but I hope that they keep that bicolor because
Yeah.
it is stunning to see in person.
It really is like we've had some, mind you, we've had some that we've raised and they stayed orange until they were about 3 and then they turned
Yeah,
red. So it's cool to like
it,
have that couple years with them though of that like really saturated
right.
orange. But
We'll take it. You know.
definitely. And I mean, they change over time no matter what. Especially like I have some that in person, like it's hard to say they're not neon, like they're just
Hmm.
so bright, especially some of the orange that we have is just so bright and the camera hates it for whatever
It
reason.
does.
Um, but those types of things, like the longer we can keep them neon too, not just as, yearlings, but like well
Hmm.
beyond some bright. And so that's kind of been a huge focus for us too, is not only like that coverage, but the saturation of it. If it's
Yes.
red, I want it to be like deep blood red. If it's orange, I want it to be like an orange, like
Hmm.
really, really saturated. And that can definitely be hit or miss sometimes. But I mean, we've had some good luck. And then, yeah, moving forward, I really am focusing a lot on blotches for sure. Um,
Okay.
we do have some really great breeders here that do make nice blotches, but like not enough. We need more.
Yeah.
So um, that's
Well,
the only part of me.
maybe I don't know if you've seen my trio that it's not going to probably breed for another, season or two, but I cannot wait. Those girls, the bicolor ones,
Yes.
I've got this crazy red male I got from Renee King, who is just covered. It's I would consider it an ultra blotch, um, deep red, but the base color is also that deep red. So when
Oh,
he's fired
nice.
up, he's solid red,
Yeah.
but you can still see the outline.
Yeah.
And then when he's fired down, he's like paper white. No, he's not really paper white. He's more pink, like a really cool pink,
Yeah.
but with the deep red blotching everywhere. So
Right. Yeah.
can't wait to see what those babies make. And I'll have to ship
Definitely.
some up to you.
Right. We'll just do a swap, blotch for blotch.
There you go.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
Right. Yeah. We have
So
some really cool ones like that too that we're, yeah, next season they should be ready ready to go. It seems like that's the story every year is, ooh, next season.
Yup.
But yeah, with especially with the blotches, we've gotten I am really grateful that we've been able to find some really high quality blotches for next year, and because they can be tricky to find, um, where you see the siblings or the parents are also consistently nice and blotched too. Because I know we have a couple that were the only blotch or the only reticulated, for that pairing for our stripes.
Yep.
So like their blotch powers are probably a lot lower than the others, but
Yep.
yeah, no, we've really been careful, really taking a while to kind of pick future breeders and everything. And we don't have a ton, like we really kind of keep our
Mhm.
numbers small so that we can have what we really are looking for, not kind of conceding of, well, I'm sure it'll work, probably.
Right.
So
You have to be strategic with it
yeah.
and pick quality over quantity for sure.
Oh, yeah, especially right now while the market's slower too. You can't just change your
Hmm.
mind and be like, actually, like I think this would be better with a different breeder, so I'll put it up for sale. No, you're probably stuck with it
Hmm.
for a while.
Yep.
So,
Exactly.
so you gotta be careful.
Oh, very fun. So, okay, what would you say, or who would you say is a breeder that, in the US market, we've got some people who are really well known.
Mhm,
Everybody knows Northern. If you're going to give us a little inside baseball,
mhm.
who are some breeders that you want to give a shout out to that are in Canada that most Americans should know if we don't know them already?
Yeah, I mean, that is tough because it seems like the Canadian breeders don't bump up the algorithm very much, right? But there's
Right. And so I want to know who I should be friending.
So, I mean, in the gargoyle world specifically, there's not
Yep.
quite as many. So, modern gecko, most people are familiar with modern gecko. They have
Hmm.
a really cute lizard named Smog that gets shared a whole lot. But modern gecko is one of
Awesome.
them for sure. They have really, really nice um, gargoyles. ND reptiles.
Mhm.
I had never heard of them before this year. And then looking through their stuff, I was like, oh, damn. Like, you have some really incredible gargoyles. Um,
We can be friends.
right.
Yeah.
Great White North, I think, out of
Okay.
Calgary. They're another one. He's not active on Facebook right now, but I guess he still keeps, but his gargoyles are exceptional. Yeah, there's not
It's funny. Sometimes those breeders that aren't huge on social media are the hidden gems that I want to
100%.
find.
100%. You can buy from big breeders whenever you want. They're very
Yep.
accessible. Usually their stuff is always listed. It's super easy. But when you find those smaller breeders like that, the ND reptiles that I found, I was like, oh, holy. They
Hmm.
don't even have a website. Like they're just kind of there existing. So they're
Right.
harder to find. But then once you do, you're like, oh, I wish I knew this. I wish I'd found them sooner. So
Right.
with gargoyles, I find that there's a lot of people up and coming in gargoyles in
Yep.
Canada, not a whole lot of
Awesome.
really established people that are. And when I think of a good gargoyle breeder, I'm really thinking of people who push every year, to make nicer
Hmm.
stuff, healthier stuff, better, just have a better collection. um Not necessarily the breeders that have just always been doing it and so they kind of keep doing it the same. I really like to see
Sure.
that growth in their projects, and those are definitely some people that stick out. And then yeah, there's quite a few. I have a long list of up and comers that I'm really watching because I can see that
Awesome.
their stuff is really nice. But at the end of the
Well, you'll have to
day,
share their names with me and I'll have them on the
right,
podcast.
I'll just send you a giant list. And yeah,
There you go. I like it.
right, yeah, no, at the end of the day though, like we are still a little scant for serious gargoyle breeders up here. So
No, that's fair. Well, then that leads me to another fun question. Other than gargoyles, what are some of your favorite species to work with? Do you work with many other
you
species? I know
know
you did before.
not a ton anymore, right? Like I really like to
Okay.
give my focus to just a few things. It's easier to really excel at husbandry if you're kind of focused in. Chewies
Yeah,
is the other
absolutely.
thing that we work with a lot. Don't tell my gargoyles, but they're my favorite.
Everybody says that. I've got to
Yeah,
get a Chewy now.
honestly, I was really late to the Chewy game because I really overlooked them. I really, really overlooked
Okay.
them. And I'm not 100% sure why. Like I'd met them before, but I'd never like handled them and really interacted with them. And back when I
Mm-hmm.
first saw them, they were not as flashy as they are now. So I kind
They're
of
very flashy.
I put them out of mind, like they're cool, but I didn't really care,
Yeah.
essentially. Um, but I think 4 years ago, I started working with them, which is crazy because
Hmm.
I've been in the New Caledonian gecko world for long enough. These guys are, if you consider it that way, brand new to me. Um,
Okay.
yeah, 4 years, but they
Yeah, it's
have,
relatively new.
yeah, really, it is. They have the biggest personalities, as much as a reptile can have a personality.
So, okay, what does that mean? If you don't mind me asking,
Yeah,
because here's my ignorance, okay? I hear a lot of different things. When I think personality, my mind goes to dog personality, and
right,
that's not what it is, or
right.
a bearded dragon personality. But also, I hear on the other end, my lychee friends who all are trying to push lychees more than chewies.
Yeah,
The chewy people will tell me that lychees are the crazy ones that are going to bite you,
yeah,
and the lychee people will say the chewies are going to bite you.
yeah.
How is the aggression, and what are their personalities really like?
I find it's a really mixed bag with chewies
Okay,
compared to other
so they're
things.
both right.
They really are. And it depends on a lot of things too. Like I can have one animal that's just an absolute sweetheart most of the time. But if
Yep.
if they're gestating, like if they have eggs ready to go, they're probably going to be cranky. If they just laid with most things, they're going to be cage
Yeah.
defensive. My favorite male Chewy that I have, he's my buddy. He bit me for the first time a few weeks ago because we moved him into a new enclosure, and it turned out
Ah.
he just loved it and became really defensive of it. And now
Okay.
he's got this like sentinel job going on every night where he comes down to the exact same spot, and which is where he bit me, and he just stares at us like, don't you dare. Before he was the
Don't move
sweetest.
me back.
Yeah.
I'm not going
Well, and
back.
it's funny because he was with a kind of a bullheaded female, for the season. Like she's really bossy. She's
Okay.
pushy, and these are my two biggest ones too. So they could really inflict damage if they felt like it. I think he was so
Yeah.
stoked to have his like own kind of bachelor pad. He did become very, very cage defensive. I'll never call them aggressive, right? Because they're not being malicious with me by any means, but
No.
definitely he became cage defensive. So the bite, it took me off guard completely because I
Sure.
never, I get lazy with them when I handle them a lot. Um, but sometimes I don't watch their body language as much as I would with a newer animal. If I've been
Yep.
handling this animal for X amount of years, this is how we interact. But for the most part, there's definitely animals that are going to get you. There's like the chewies some of them will chase you out of their enclosure for sure, just like a lychee would. The
Okay.
damage obviously isn't as severe because I think our biggest
That's a
chewy,
plus.
yeah, our biggest chewy is about, I think it's about 85 grams, right?
Okay.
So
Yeah.
they're not as stocky bodied as a gargoyle, so it's more in like a lot of length, but it's a good enough bite to remind you to watch their body
Nobody wants to get
language.
bitten even by a
No.
crested gecko. Let's be honest here.
Right. So no, as far as their overall personalities go, like you will get those ones that can be cranky, they're defensive,
Sure.
whatever their issue is. For the most part though, what I would consider personality is their
Hmm.
interaction level. My gargoyles don't interact with me necessarily. Like they know certain things will happen. It's feeding time, right? So they'll be more
Hmm.
into it. Whereas the chewies will come see you. Like they will come down and see you. They'll watch you. We have a couple that will jump at you, like through the glass. Like if you're looking at them, they will jump at your face. They want to come interact.
Yeah.
They're much different. And I mean, I've had so many gargoyles over the years, and they all have their own cute little personalities and their quirks and their preferences. But it's that interaction level. Like the gargoyles just don't give me that. They tolerate me. Don't get me wrong. Like they let me
Hmm.
take them out, and they'll hang out and they'll walk and they'll do their things, and they also get cranky. But
Yep.
they definitely seem to be a lot more intelligent as well, as far as
Okay.
how they handle everything, their partners, their food. And I think too, the debate is there for if they pair bond or not, but
Hmm.
we have definitely seen that they do. Even if it's not a bond, it's a preference. They really prefer to be with one animal, and there
Okay.
has to be some kind of intelligence level around there to prefer to be with that one animal instead of just in mindless breeding mode. So
Yep.
but
Is
they're
that why women are smarter than men?
I'm not going to comment on that. I'm saying it that way. Yeah.
Sorry, I had to.
No, I do recommend though, especially people that keep new cows, get
Yeah.
a chewy, even if it's just for a pet. They're
Yeah.
I do find them more rewarding to keep because of that interaction level. They're just so much fun. Um, they're bigger. You do need bigger spaces for them. They utilize it. Like
Hmm.
I find my gargoyles don't utilize height as much. Like you can give them a
Okay, yeah, I
square
don't see
box,
that.
right? And
Okay.
then they're
Yep.
fine. Because they're from scrubs, right? Scrublands. They like shrubs and living
Hmm.
under logs and things like that. Whereas chewies, I mean, they're moss colored and they're prehensile for a reason, right? They
Yep.
utilize that height. So they'll use every single inch that you give them in an enclosure too, which is I love watching them because I wouldn't say they're crepuscular, but I do find they're really active right before lights out, like that dawn and
Okay.
dusk. The gargoyles will pretend that they're just dead until lights go out here, right? Like they're just
Right.
like they don't move,
And then you shine the flashlight at them, and it's like
right?
freeze.
Yeah,
You know.
100%. Whereas the chewies are not like that at all. They're very active, while the lights are
Very
still
cool.
on, which I don't know. I always prefer to kind of interact with my animals before the lights go out. So
You try to,
you do, yeah. No, chewy. I do really recommend. We just got some Urodactylodes as well. We've never kept
Oh, I
them.
love those.
Yeah, I was another one of those that I overlooked big time. I didn't get it,
Yeah,
and then I don't know what it was. Just something switched. I'm like, oh my god, they're so cute. um,
they're so cute,
the
and they're
size,
so
right?
easy.
They,
They're easy.
yeah,
You want to talk about handle? They're mini chewies, is what I've been told. And again, I haven't had a chewy other than just a baby, and I sold it to buy more gargoyles.
right.
But with Urodactyloides, I had a breeding pair. It's actually how I kind of afforded to buy so many geckos at first. Is I bought a breeding pair for a really awesome price and just started selling the babies. Um, but what I found was that, I mean, you could handle them so easily. They're slow
Yeah,
moving. They're all over the place. They don't hide very much.
no,
If they were more colorful, they would be more popular, in
yeah.
my opinion, than all the other new cows.
I agree. And like there's besides the rare ones, I've worked with, all the
Hmm.
commonly available new cows and they do some of them are definitely, I'm not going to say overrated, but they have a
Hmm.
popularity level that is surprising to me considering
Hmm.
how great things like your Dactylodes and Chewa are, right? Like they're so
Hmm.
I know the price point makes Chewies a little inaccessible for some people that just want them as a pet, but there's
Yeah,
always mainlands.
especially the Pine Island.
Yeah, like we have mainlands as well for that reason because they are accessible. And,
Hmm.
we have some really gorgeous mainlands that are just as pretty as a lot of PIs. Even they like even have a white collar, right? Like they're really pretty and smaller
Yep.
too, right? Smaller enclosure, less food. It's they can be
They're-
accessible, but I don't know. Those the mainlands have just been kind of written off as the ugly brown, smaller chewy, and they're
and
not.
the reds that I've seen
Yeah.
on them are amazing. I
Yeah.
know that crossbreeding them is a big no-no,
It,
right? Because we want to keep the
preferably
Pine
not. Yeah.
Islands pure. Yeah,
Yeah.
ideally, right? So I wonder sometimes if there's a white collar, if there was a little bit of cross, who knows?
I think it's
But
really hard to say that any of them are pure locale at this point. I
right,
really think, especially since we've gotten so much of our stock from Europe, which didn't put as a big of an importance on keeping them separate. You can see similarities in both all the time. Like you can see Pine Island traits in the mainland sometimes, and mainland traits to the point where now you don't fully know unless you have the lineage. So, it's
I think
definitely,
we're canceled after this conversation.
you know,
That's what I'm getting from this.
That's fair. No, in all honesty though, like that I think most people do share that mindset, especially when you look at the Chewy groups on Facebook, which seems to be the
Yeah.
only active Chewy kind of groups. Um,
Hmm.
it is pretty well known that like it's going to be real hard to get anything pure. And if you do get something pure, you better like back check it
Hmm.
that it's like an F1, F2, where the parents came from. Like it's really, especially with mainlands, right? Like
Yep.
especially. So I don't know.
Because I don't know how much they cost out by you, but on mainland, I mean, even 2021, 2022, that's when I got one. I got my first one from Jecko's Geckos, amazing red line little baby. It was a mainland, and I'm like, oh, I can get this for
Yeah.
$400? That's
Yeah.
amazing. Um, Trying to sell it for $400 without the name Jecko's Geckos,
Yeah.
nobody wanted it,
Yep.
and so people were offering me 200, for it. I'm like, for a chewy,
Yeah.
really? I thought a chewy. And they're like, well, it's not Pine
Yeah.
Island.
Yeah.
Okay, All right, good to know.
Yeah.
You know,
It's so strange because even interaction wise, my mainlands, they're almost a little goofier. Like they're weird. I don't know, they're total goofballs and
yeah,
they're just as fun. Yeah, I don't know why they've gotten kind of like that demoted status for for Chewies, but they really have. I don't know. I love them. I think they're really neat and they really should be more popular. Like they should be just as popular as the mainland or
hmm,
as the pine owls just for pets, like just for pet purposes. If you're just looking to buy a
sure,
Chewy, mainland is great. Like there's nothing wrong with getting a
nothing
mainland.
wrong with
Yeah.
them. That's awesome. And one thing I'll be honest with you, I do know I saw that you posted that you did recently get a new Chewy, and it was gorgeous. Did you get it from what? ET
One
Geckos?
of them, yeah, we got
One
two
of
new
them.
Chewies in the last import.
Okay,
One was from ET Geckos and one was from Dragonborn Exotics. So,
awesome.
yeah, both
Yeah,
really great breeders.
both great breeders. The one that I saw that was from
Hmm.
ET, I I even reached out to them after I saw your post because I'm like, that's ridiculous. I mean, I'll put a picture of it here, but I think it looked almost like it was like almost black, like it was younger, and then it had these like orange blotches,
Yeah,
and it was so cool.
yeah.
And so yeah, when I reached out, I'm like, "Do you have any siblings?" I she was so nice. She's like, "We actually, I think just so you know, that's going to turn orange most likely,
Yes. The
based on the
parents are
lineage." And I'm like,
bonkers orange. Yeah.
that's that's even cooler.
Yeah.
Like if that was to deter me, you're doing a horrible
Right?
job. You just sold me even harder.
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you've got to share that gecko with me eventually, like pictures and just I
Definitely.
want to see what that produces.
Yeah, that one is one that we were so excited to have it because it is
Hmm.
buying into good lineage can be tricky, especially in Canada. Like I said, we all share a lot of northern gecko chewies and everything. And
Yep.
so when we import from the States, when we get chewies from the States, they're already such a high cost animal, right? So you know that that import is going to be like, it's going to hurt. So
5% on top of that.
Oh,
Yep.
exactly. So, it was that's something you have to be even more mindful with. It's like, okay, I'm going to buy Chewy from the States. So, this better be the right one. Um, so it's actually my partner, it's his gecko, technically. He says
Oh,
it's
cool.
ours,
Okay.
but that's his gecko because he fell in love with, um, I believe you say the name Kasura is the mom, the dam for that baby, and she's
Okay.
like this yellow, like she's like yellow, and I still think it's like a really cool orange. He says it's yellow, but he reached out
Hmm.
to ET and was like, I really like, are you ever going to pair this? Who are you going to pair it with? Like, I really love this gecko, this is like my dream gecko. And
Yeah.
so yeah, sure enough, she's like, yeah, I happen to have one. So we did an entire import around getting that ET gecko because we had to have it. We had to have it. Um,
You have to have it.
yeah, and
I
we're
mean,
really big. Like, don't get me wrong, I love white collars. I do, but I'm
mhm.
really big on high color. I love the color.
Yes.
Um, Obviously, having both is the best of both worlds, and ET
Hmm.
specializes. Same with Kahua Chamber.
Hmm.
I'll never.
Yeah, however you say it now
He's the
today,
Chewy
I
Chamber
didn't
for
take.
me.
Yep.
um, but
It's not a
he's
cooey or chewy.
right. He's him and ET are who I think of when I think high color. Like off the top of my head, I know there's
Absolutely, yeah.
amazing breeders that also do it, but they're always the top two for me. And so it was kind of those goals of, oh, one day I'm going to buy from this
Hmm.
breeder. So we were able to get one
Absolutely.
from ET this year, import from ET. We got another Chewy and another gargoyle from a Dragonborn as well, and
Nice.
a Cresty that
That
my
Dragonborn has crazy stuff.
he's another one of those accounts. I know a lot of people do follow him, but not enough people know what he has. Because he
Mm-mm,
is
I agree.
not super active on Instagram, so we don't see a lot of it. But when you do, like when he posts that one picture,
Yep.
you're like, holy, like
Yep.
that's insane. Um, and then you're like, okay, well, what about the lineage? And then he'll show you the lineage. You're like, what?
Yeah.
So
Have you been breeding for like 30 years? Like, how did you get all that? Yeah, no, it's
right.
amazing.
No, so we were really stoked to be able to do that import for sure because those were two breeders from like, if we could ever just import just this
Mm-hmm.
one time. We did import a Chewy from Troy's Geckos as well earlier this year.
Oh yeah, another great Chewy breeder.
Absolutely. And because we wanted high color, right? So she's got almost no collar on her. She's got just this tiny little
Mm-hmm.
blip of a collar, but she is like orange, like tangerine orange. We named her Mango because she's bright orange.
Nice.
Um, and we're just not seeing that yet in Canada, right? Those high colors, like there's
Okay.
a lot of breeders working on it, kind of where
Mm-hmm.
I'm at or a couple years ahead of me for high color. And we're all importing though. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, you need to. I
yeah,
mean, that's what we talked about today.
yeah,
And I love the idea of the high color because just like with, lily whites, right? Everybody was raced to get a pure white
yeah,
gecko. And now they're still amazing. They're still expensive. There's nothing wrong with the super high white lily
yep.
white. But where do you go from there,
And
right?
this is it. We talk about that with chewies all the time. Of like, okay, well now you have a pure white gecko. What are you gonna do with
Hmm.
it? Like, what are you gonna do with it? Like now you've got to
Yep.
backtrack and add a bunch of color back into your whites, right? So,
Yep.
and that's why we went straight to ET as well because she's
Yeah.
accomplished both, like really consistently. So even
Hmm.
if it's like the ugly duckling, which it's not, I love the gecko we got from her, but even if it was like the worst of them, it's still a phenomenal animal, right? So,
The genetics can throw crazy stuff.
oh, especially with chewies, I really find you have to buy for lineage, not necessarily
Hmm.
what they look like as an animal themselves, but that lineage usually means more at the end of the day. And you can buy into some really incredible genetics if you're not too worried about how much white they're showing. So
Right.
we definitely have some sleepers genetically where you see them like, well, that's nice. But when you see the
Yep.
lineage, you're like, oh, that's going to be crazy. So, you know,
Grandpa was insane.
right. And like it's no
Right.
different than gargoyles, right? Because are you getting that pair's nicest or that pair's,
Hmm.
not as nice that year? If you're getting that pair's only one nice animal that it randomly threw, genetically you might not be looking at as crazy a
You might be
projects.
disappointed after 3
Yeah.
years in pairing,
Yeah.
and I'll be honest with you, I fall into that trap too. I'm human. I've said this many times on the podcast. I like pretty things. I surround myself with pretty
Yep.
things. My wife likes to hear me when I say that.
Right.
But I, but like my geckos. I've sold off geckos that I know had really good lineage just because I'm like, I just for right now to stay interested and motivated in the hobby. I only have at the time maybe 10
Hmm.
geckos. I want everyone to look like a stunner,
Right.
right? But now that I've kind of established my initial collection, I think that's the way to
Yeah.
go. It's definitely more cost effective, which again,
Yeah.
if you're trying to make this work on a budget,
Hmm.
being very strategic
Yeah.
is there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Don't go into debt for geckos. You're not going to make your money back.
It is not. It is not what people say it is. That's for sure. Even during the boom times, people made a
Hmm.
lot of money in 2020, in 2021, but now they have a lot of animals they can't sell, right? So it's
Hmm.
like, did you actually make all the money that you made on paper, or do you have way too many geckos now?
Right.
Because we're
Well,
slow
because
now.
I don't know if you chalk this up to intelligence or whatever it is, but chalk it up to the addiction. All right. I never in a million years would have thought I would spend anywhere near $1,000 on a
Yeah.
reptile. Okay. When I was into bearded dragons and I bought a bearded dragon for $350, I thought I was insane.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And that was a beautiful red Dunner, crazy dragon. But as you get into this hobby, and everybody who's listening probably can relate to this, this is why the shows where you buy your $150, starter
Yep.
gecko, all of a sudden you buy that next gecko and you have
Yep.
$200. And then you sell that gecko. And now you're like, "Ooh, I sold that gecko. It was a little bit older, and now I have $400. Let's reinvest the full 400. What can I buy?
Yep.
Oh, that's nice."
Yep.
And then it just because I make money, I sold one gecko for let's say $2,500 this past year, right? I could have pocketed, a big chunk of that as profit.
Right.
I said, no, I'm going to invest it back in the
Yep.
geckos. So yes, even during those boom
Yep.
times, most of those breeders probably just goes, let the dice roll. Let's keep going
Right.
with this,
Yep.
right? So unless you cash out, it's not actualized.
No, and that's the thing too. I think that's I don't know, like when you really readjust your expectations financially in this hobby, like and know
Mm-hmm.
that it can't be about the money. Like it just can't. They have to at some point be able to help pay for themselves, their food and everything for
Absolutely.
sure, just to make it a sustainable hobby. But at the end of the day, um, it just doesn't matter. Like
No.
it doesn't even matter. Sometimes I love my $50 geckos as much as my, thousands worth of a gecko. And they're all, I don't know, make, even if they don't, sometimes it happens that you buy a gecko and they just won't breed. They are a bad producer,
Yep.
just no matter who they're paired with over the years, they just won't. Um, a lot of people do look at that as like a waste, like a bad investment,
Mm-hmm.
and those type of expectations really need to be left at the door because we're not dealing with merchandise that we can predict and
No.
keep a certain way. We're dealing with I mean, it's a bad investment if you're looking at it as an
It
investment.
is. It
It's
really
just the
is.
worst investment,
No, no,
but
no.
I love it. I find it worth it no matter what.
Invest in the stock market if you're gonna
Seriously,
do an
this is
investment.
dopamine
It's
investment is what it is, though.
yes. Yeah.
Truly.
The first time you hatch out an egg or find an egg,
Yeah,
it's just that dopamine hit. It's amazing. It's
it
absolutely
is.
amazing. It just makes you want to do it more and more,
Yeah.
and then you want to go. Okay, it's almost like when you're going. If you've been to Vegas or any of the casinos,
Well, I've been
right?
to casinos.
It's
Yep.
like you've been to
Yep.
casinos, right? You pull the slots, and you win $5. Great,
Yep.
but you're like, all right, jackpot, let's go.
Yep. Yeah, it's true.
Eh,
I mean, some call it an addiction, but it's
it is.
no, it truly is. But the nice thing about it though is doing it all these years later, because I started breeding amphibians so young too, like mud skippers and fire belly
Oh,
toads
cool.
and stuff like that. Like over 20 years ago, I get so excited still. Like when I see things hatch, especially, first things like your first chewy or your first knobtail or your first whatever. It's still so
Yeah.
exciting, like it's the first, but even still, I get so excited when I see gargoyles in the incubator. I don't even know how many thousands of gargoyles have been through the incubator, but still I'm like, happy dancing about, ooh, oh my God, I can't believe it,
Well,
whatever,
they're all a
whatever.
little bit different.
Yep.
And, it's like you're looking at them super close. You're like, come on, shed. I want to see. Do you really have that
Yep.
pattern I think you have?
Oh,
You know?
100%. I'm really bad for it too. And you see it like rolled up their nose already when they come out of the egg. I just kind
Mm-hmm.
of give it a little, like, are you going to come on? Like,
Yeah.
are you going to show me what's under there?
Is it, there's a question for maybe you or the audience, and I pretty much know the answer. Do you ever help your geckos with their sheds?
Sometimes, for sure. It's
Okay.
circumstantial, right?
Yeah.
I have some geckos that would never dream of letting me help them.
Fair enough.
But I do often if I see, especially out of the incubator, if I see their shed is still on them a few days later, then I will help them because sometimes it's too wet, because that incubation
Mm-hmm.
media just keeps them so moist. I will help them, especially if they're very, very young. Until they get into their baby bin and they can regulate on their own. Sometimes too, if I open the bin and I see they have a hoodie on, where it's like peeled back, I do help them just a little
Yep.
bit. Not a lot. I don't but it is
Yeah.
so
But it's so
it
tempting.
really is, and especially too because it's not harmful if you're not stressing them out. If the shed is already completely loose, like it's not actually going to harm them.
Right.
You might stress them out of it, unless some
Mm-hmm.
of your animals are just so docile that they just really. I definitely have some of those who
Yeah.
are like, fine, human, whatever, like take my shed.
There you go.
Right, but it is so exciting, especially those first 2 years with gargoyles because they look different every shed, even a little bit. There's some
Mm-hmm.
kind of progression, some kind of difference. So you get so excited when you see that, like when they're in ghost mode, you're like,
Yeah.
it can be very hard. I'm so impulsive too. I just want to. I do my best at
Yep.
not. The babies though, the babies that have been out of the incubator for a few days, those are always the ones that I help out, just because when that shed is too wet, it just won't. It just sticks to them. It won't come
Yeah.
off. So
I've only had one time where I've helped a shed so far with gargoyles, plenty with bearded
yep,
dragons, but it was a little baby that didn't shed over a few days, and it started to get the hood,
yeah,
and so I'm like, ooh, okay. So I had these little tweezers, and I just held onto it, and the gecko ran out of its
yeah,
shed. It was such a cool,
yeah,
like just
yeah,
unzipped,
yeah,
and
yep.
I'm like, oh, you're gorgeous.
Right? Yeah,
So,
especially that first shed.
um,
That's always so exciting to see.
yeah, it was so fun. And like you said, it's not just that first one, it's all the other sheds that they keep getting better and
Yeah.
better and better. And even at a 3-year-old age, like these geckos live for a long time.
Yeah.
And sometimes they get duller and
Yep.
sometimes they get
Yep.
brighter. And so it's not an always a straight up projection
Yeah.
of color and pattern. But one thing that stuck with me, I was watching a video with Brian from Altitude Exotics,
Yeah.
and he was explaining that he keeps everything back until it's pretty much a juvenile. Like he doesn't sell babies. He
Right.
sells, sub-adults to
Yeah.
adults. And he deals with initial babies, and then he lets someone else that I think works for him
Oh,
take
okay.
care of the babies, because he likes when they transition into the adult tubs.
Right.
He's like, oh, look at how much you've changed.
Right.
Where if you see them every day, you don't appreciate that as
Yeah.
much. And I'm like, well, I don't have that luxury, but I think that's such a cool
Right.
idea, right?
It's true. Oh, look at that. Everybody's lights out.
Yeah, it's all right.
It's
We've been talking for a
oh yeah,
while.
I guess. No, it's fun too because
Yeah.
I have some gargoyles too, they're older, like, years old, and their new shed, all of a sudden they have orange speckling all over their face where they didn't for
Yeah.
years. So they definitely keep it, I don't know, they keep it exciting that way. Those little things, those tiny little things that
Yeah.
make it a little more fun every time somebody does something as minor as shedding.
Better looking age spots. Don't you wish our age spots all looked
I
like that?
mean, yeah, that would yep, sure do.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, I really have had a blast talking with you. This has been so much fun. Hopefully you've had some
For
fun
sure,
too.
it's been great.
So thank you, Jasmine. I've learned a ton about, some of the differences between the U.S. and Canada, and we're definitely going to have to figure a way to do a swap one of these
For
days.
sure.
You've convinced me to go look at the Chewies at Tinley,
Nice.
but I'll send you some pictures and show
Definitely.
you what we have down here.
Definitely.
Where can people find you if they're looking to look at your
Just
geckos?
Blackthorn Exotics on Facebook, on Instagram, blackthornexotics.ca. I think even on Morph Market. I don't update my Morph Market
Okay.
ever, but pretty much just Blackthorn Exotics. Nobody else has the name, so I'm super easy to find.
Fair enough. I'm actually going to sneak in one more question
Sure.
here. Morph Market, how often do you guys use it?
Yeah, not often. Not often. It's really geared towards Americans, just I think user number wise, right? Like
Okay.
we use it here, but 99% of the ads that we see are in the States. So it makes it a lot harder
Right.
to shop. And when you narrow it down to Canada only, then it's like, well, I've seen all of these on Instagram. So there's like no
Right.
shopping to be had here.
It's
So
like shopping at your high school.
it really is,
Yeah.
yeah. So there's not, I find it is very American based, and that's fine, right? Like it works amazing for sellers down there. It's works okay if you have like really neat, unique species up here, but if you're a gecko breeder, Morph Market's probably not the place for you in Canada.
Fair
Yeah.
enough. And I know that personally, when I go on to Morph Market, the default is that it's the US and Canada.
Yeah.
And so I will actually turn off Canada because I've gotten disappointed so many times where I see an amazing gecko and I'm like, out of my price range after the shipping. So no, fair enough. Sorry to do that to you,
Nah.
but it's something that I've done.
It's all good. We're used to it.
Fair enough. Jasmine, you're amazing. Thank you so much for your time, and you have a wonderful rest of your night.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and enjoy Tinley. Definitely take some pictures for me.
I will. All right, I'll post that video and I'll send it to you right away.
Perfect. Okay, thanks so much.
All right, have a good one.
Too.
Bye. Hey, if you've enjoyed this video and want to encourage me to make more gargoyle gecko content, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button, share this with a friend, and maybe check out one of the videos right over there. I'll see you next time on Gecko Cove.